Hi there, I'm Bill Story of the Olderhood Group, and this is our continuing series called Money Matters. And my guest today is Ian Price, who is a financial consultant in the United Kingdom. Hi, Ian.
Good morning, Bill.
How you doing?
Very well indeed.
Good. So, I thought, Ian, we could start what I guess we'd call a mini series. We talk about money matters and money management all the time. We talk about financial planning, which is fine. But, one of the things that I've found, and I know you have as well, because we've talked about this before, is that as you get older, things change in your life, obviously, and financial issues change and money management changes, etc. So I thought we'd start a mini series about sort of starting with youth, young folks. Let's do two to begin with. Young folks that are single, just not married. Then we'll also today do young folks who are married, and then we'll move on into middle age, I think. And do a couple there the next time around, and then we'll wrap up later on with sort of pre-planning for retirement and then retirement itself. Mm-hmm. So that being said, let's kick off with sort of number one, which would be talking, how do people who are younger, who are employed, with a salary, not those who are necessarily working with, the mom and dad bank, which we've talked about before. Young people, not married, no kids, what kind of issues do they face in terms of their own financial money or money management?
Right, Bill, this is going to be hilarious, I think. Reality is, I think if you go back to younger people, the first problem they've got is, I don't think they really understand money per se, because I think we haven't done, and we're starting to see this, the whole objective of financial education is only beginning to rebuild momentum, shall I say. So in the UK, for example, we've seen a lot of kids almost get to working age, not really understanding anything about money. So when they have their first month's pay packet, it comes as a real shock to them. They've got money, but also they've got things like tax, national insurance. So I think starting as a youngster today, looking at through their lens, there's a couple of things happening. One is they've got to enjoy life, Bill. There's no question. We can sit here slightly more mature, but when you're younger, you have got to enjoy life. It's not all about saving for tomorrow. What it's about is, I think the starting point is as simple as learning to budget. Literally starting with how much is coming in, how much is going out, and what other expenditure do I want to save up for? So this example could be a holiday. So I think the younger you are, it's all the very basics, what comes in, what's going out, can I save a bit along the way? And it's almost as simple as that, Bill.
Yeah, and I think also perhaps these folks have been living with mom and dad. They've been in the home, and they could still be there. They're employed, but they're still, as it were, living at home. So their expenses are somewhat camouflaged, perhaps, because mom and dad are paying for the electricity or whatever it may be. But, for those who decide to, move out, to be on their own, so they walk into the whole idea of, do I buy a property? Can I buy a flat or something like that? And I need a mortgage? Do I need help to get the deposit? Or should I just rent? I think there is there a tendency at the moment or these days for folks who are doing that to be renting more than actually buying the property?
Yes. If you look specifically, say, UK, well, worldwide, interest rates going up. Some countries, UK particularly, are fixated about property ownership. Reality is that very few can start on that journey straight away unless they get help. Suddenly saving up, say, I don't know, a £20,000 or even $20,000 or $30,000, whatever, takes a lot of time. So I think what they do, and a friend of mine did it, they dip their toe in it, they go with their mates and they go and rent a place to enjoy life. One of my daughter's friends, she decided to go and live in London, rented a room in London, but that was nearly £1,000 £100 a month just to rent the room, suddenly London didn't look quite as attractive as she thought it was going to look, Bill. So I think there's a bit of, you've got to let them try. Yeah, if you're younger, you don't look at everything through, like I said, through our lens. I'm young, I'm starting out, I want to enjoy life. The thing they do, which is good, is I think they're better than we were for searching out good deals. Does that make sense, Bill? So I think we didn't have the tools that they've got. So, if we want to go away, if my daughter want to go away on holiday, they'll go and do Airbnb because it's cheaper. So they are better, I think, than we were at digging out deals. And mine, we've got something called Pizza Express down the road. The first thing they do is go online and see what vouchers they get to save money. So I think there is a tendency to do that, but I absolutely agree. When they leave home, suddenly they don't realise. It's like here, I was just saying to you, it's got very autumnal in the UK. Suddenly both my daughters live nearby in apartments, but when the winter's here, they bring their washing back to our house to put it in the tumble dryer to dry. They don't really realise how much a tumble dryer costs. I'm not worried about it, but it's those sort of things, Bill, are just building up slowly but surely. But when you start work, it is all about the enjoyment of work, the enjoyment of getting your first salary, starting to experience, and also sometimes, believe it or not, paying for it yourself is quite a motivator. Paying for your first holiday rather than your mum and dad paying can be quite a motivator. So I think you just got to get that balance right, Bill, all the time. Keep the balance right.
Yeah, and I think you make a good point there about being like online, trying to find a rental property. I mean, I remember way back, well, very way back, when I went to university in Edinburgh. And I mean, just trying to find digs for the week. I mean, I would come home at the weekend. I lived about 30 miles away from Edinburgh. But, you just had to hope for word of mouth. You were at the university, you were saying, I'm looking for a place. Does anybody know? Whatever. Things like newspapers. Yeah, they weren't that particularly good. But nowadays, you just go online and there's, thousands of places that you can look at. You can look at photographs or whatever. I mean, I remember going to look at the place that I ultimately did choose. I had no idea what I was walking into. I knew where the place, I knew where the house was, and I walked in and met the landlady, sort of thing, and off you go. So I think that's a very, very big point. But also, the point you're making about the fun, the excitement of getting your first paycheck. It is fun. There's no question about that.
Okay.
But then, along with it, when you sort of turn it around, on the front side it says the income, and then the back side it says taxation. And then when you turn it really upside down, you discover that you're now responsible for expenses. Do you feel that? The expense side of budgeting? Do young folks do that properly? I mean, are they conscious of it? You're sort of saying, yeah, maybe they are, maybe they're not.
I think the answer to that is they're probably more conscious than we give them credit for sometimes, Bill. I think now, particularly as the world's developed, a lot of banks have got some amazing apps that help you. Does that make sense? Our excitement, Bill, we're very similar ages. We used to get paid. Every 2 weeks, you get a bank statement where you go through your bank statement to the check stubs to make sure it balanced. That doesn't happen nowadays. And I can't remember the last time I wrote a check. My daughters have never had a checkbook in their lives. So there's apps on there. So I think there's a lot more tools to help them now than ever before. I think what you've got to be is realistic about it and just say, what can I do? What can't I do? I remember my daughter, I think we've mentioned before, she's lucky enough, she when she qualified for a doctor, the first month's pay, she came home and took us out to dinner. The only slight problem was she forgot she got paid after we went out for dinner. So I had to pay for the dinner, then she had to pay me back. That's fine. But there are some amazing tools out there to help people budget more than ever before, Bill. And I think people should use them. In the UK, we're just starting to see, fun enough, renting quite difficult. We've got massive problems with the buy-to-let market. There's more people renting. So fun enough, rent is going up as property prices come down. Really interesting dynamics. But I think the youngsters, they have got budgeting tools. They are brilliant. My daughter, every year, she phones up the mobile phone company and says, what deal will you give me this year? If they don't give a good deal, she moves. Can I just say, I don't do that, Bill, because I'm old and decrepit. So in some ways, they're better at doing things than we are. And I think we should give them credit. I think sometimes it's all about not. Actually, some of them are good. You're quite right. One of my friends, they left home, went out and lived in a flat for a year with a mate. decided this is not working, i.e. financially, went back home saving up to buy. So sometimes you've got to go out to come back to then go out again. I think that's just life. It's about jobs, isn't it, Bill? I did a presentation recently. I've only ever worked for 2 employers and now myself. You know, by the time people are 30, they might have 4 or 5 jobs because they go, move, go, move. So life's changing, but I think budgeting becomes key. Using the tools that are available is absolutely important.
Yeah, I think that's right, and I mean, without sounding, sort of facetious about it, just normal everyday expenses like groceries and food and stuff like that. They've been used to walking up to the fridge in mum and dad's house and opening it and saying, I wonder what I'll eat tonight. Oh no, I don't like that. Oh, that's But then they move into their own place and they go to the fridge and open it and there's nothing there. Now, as I say, I don't want to be sort of smarty about it, sort of thing, but simple things like, I have to go and get the groceries and I have to pay for it. It's not a case of going with mum to the grocery store and picking and choosing, etc. But it's a whole exercise. I mean, I don't want to overblow the point, but it's a fairly simple kind of a thing. Now they have to go to the grocery store, pick it, choose, etc., and pay for it. Well, okay, that's a bit of a life changer when you've been used to something else.
But it's funny because my eldest daughter, what she does, and in the UK we've got something called a Monzo card. She puts money each month on a Monzo card. That's her spending money. And Monzo round up. So if you spend, say, £19.50, it rounds up to £20 and puts the 50p into a savings account. It's amazing how much money she saved up. It's, so I think there's little things, I'm very conscious like you that they don't realize cash is just a commodity for the younger generation that's just not, they just don't think, I'm the only person in my house that's ever got cash, ever. But when they go to the bars, they just tap, they just literally, somebody shows the machine, they tap. They don't really ask what's going. And in fairness, a really good mate of mine has just done an exercise where he's worked out how much he spends on coffee a month, and it's 75 quid. So he's now not spending money on coffee. So he sat there and was honest. So I think there's some great tips. Yes, they should enjoy their first few months' wages. I'm passionate about that. Enjoy working, enjoy experiencing adulthood, and then start to think and start getting into habits. You and I have spoken about this before, Bill. If something comes out your wages straight away, you don't miss it. It's when you get it and have to do it. So if you can start to create habits for younger people, it's great. If, for instance, you could say, right, can you afford, let's pick a fee, $75 for the sake of argument a month into your savings account? Do it straight away. Start. So I'm about, in the UK, something called Couch to 5K, Bill. Like somebody said, you're sitting on the settee or couch, how do you get to 5K? Small steps. And I think that's what we've got to help do, small steps. So it'll work. Big steps don't work. So I think it's about that.
Let's move up the scale a little bit into the sort of second demographic or second category that we're talking about in this series. Let's stay with the young folks, but now let's get them married or living with a significant other, and either because there are now 2 people in the house, or maybe kids have come along or coming along, something like that. How does that lifestyle of financial management change now in that type of situation?
Well, it's fascinating. There's been loads of research that a lot of couples would speak about anything else apart from money. Does it make sense? You'd almost talk about the whatever rather than money. So the key starting point has to be, if you bring 2 people together to live, you have to be open and honest about who owns what, earns what, and what your objective is. So let's, for instance, you're now buying a house. How much of that house cost is going to be for A or B? Partnership doesn't really matter. So have a very clearly defined, this is what we're spending money on. I think sometimes, as always in life, and I'm sure, Bill, if I spoke to your wife and you spoke to my wife, there's a bit of give and take along the way. Sometimes it's about, right, again, what is our budget? What do we need to spend each month? And what's left and what we're using that for? Does that make sense? So in other words, you know when you buy a house for the first time, it always costs more money than you think. And without question of doubt, you move house, more stuff. So when you start living together, it's again about what is the budget that we need to make sure that we can continue to live there. And if you're lucky enough, the first port of call I'd say to anybody in financial planning of any description, if you can, create what we'd call, Bill, in the old terms, rainy day money, an amount of money that's put away, maybe 1 month's salary or 2 months' salary, just in case something goes wrong. So I think the starting point is sit down together. What is your combined income? What are your combined outgoings? How are you proportion them? So if you look at myself, funny enough, my wife's in the house because she's a school teacher. I've always earned more money than Nicole because of my career. That's just the way it's gone. Therefore, I take a bigger share of the cost. That's fair as well. So I think it's that balancing that of sitting down. I always say treat your income like a business. So money comes into the household. You're now running a business. What bills do we need to pay from this business of, say, Ian, Nicole? And that could be, gas, electric. Particularly where you come from, the heating's on most of the year. I think only once in the month of the year it's not on in Scotland, to be perfectly honest. You've got heating costs. You've got to be open and honest and realistic and work out. So, for instance, great example, my youngest daughter, she's a school teacher. Actually, she needs the gym for her mental well-being as well, Bill. So some of this is about the balance. And again, being realistic. All the time, keep it realistic.
Yeah, it reminds me of an old analogy that I was given many, many, many years ago about the give and take. I remember I've been told that if each of you gives 60% and takes 40%, but you both do it, you're probably going to be in pretty good shape. And and I think that's right. I think the other thing about that though is that when as we would say in Scotland, if I may, which will not be translated anywhere, one would perhaps hope, twa heads are better than one. And it's simply saying that two heads, two people who are looking at a given situation, financial or otherwise, are better than one. Because you have a second opinion, if you wish. You're stuck in when you're on your own, you've got nobody to bounce off the walls with. You don't. I mean, maybe you go back to mum and dad, I suppose, but you want to be independent, so you ain't going to do that sort of thing. So I think that's the other aspect of it, sort of thing. And then as I mentioned, when kids are coming along, or when you're thinking about kids, or whatever sort of thing. Once again, that whole dynamic changes because now you're in accommodation, whether it's rented or property owned or whatever sort of thing. But now you're having to think about, we're going to have a family, whatever. That changes life. That's a big life changer, when and if that happens as well, doesn't it?
I think all the time is, you and I could sit there and say there's never a right time to have a child. In our lives we've had kids and everything. I think, both my daughters got on the property ladder by themselves. It was really hard. Let's be perfectly blunt. It was really hard as single people getting on. So you're quite right. If there's two of you, it can be a little bit easier. And there's no question. I do like the idea of, if no matter what your salary, 60% goes into the household budget. I quite like that because percentage wise, it's the same. It doesn't matter if it's income wise, it doesn't really matter. So I think you're absolutely right. It's about building a plan. And I'm passionate about this. Have a plan, Bill. What are you going to do? You and I have been in business a long, long time, and you'll sit down and people go, "Oh, I'm going to have a 5-year plan." I do it on what's the plan for 2024? What am I going to try and achieve in 2024, or what are we going to try and achieve in 2024? Believe it or not, writing it down makes a huge difference, as you know, Bill. We've always said that if you have a plan, write it down, and do it. And that's exactly what I do in finances. What do you want to do? How do you want to achieve it? When do you want to achieve it by? And literally just go for it. And by the way, I was doing a presentation yesterday, believe it or not, Bill. And like I said, I can still remember when Nicole and I got to £500 saved in a rainy day money. I can still remember the euphoria of that. Unbelievable.
I think that's an excellent point, actually, because I was going to just ask you, where does savings, the notion of savings, and within this age group, within this category, young, with or without kids, sort of thing, where does savings come in? Is savings? I mean, savings is always an important issue. We all recognise that, but is it doable? I mean, do those folks in that category basically just say, "Look, I'm sorry, I've got nothing left at the end of the month. I would love to save. Ain't going to happen. Move on."
Do you know what, Bill? Somebody asked me a very direct question like that. Your answer is absolutely right. Will be people in this category where they are desperate for the end of the month to come for their paycheck. Okay, so people like us saying what you should do is save 10% of your salary. They're going to go, what planet are you guys living on? And I think you've got to be very careful that in today's society, you don't always think, oh, just because we can have a little bit of money left at the end of the month, everybody does. They don't. There was an article in the UK recently. They reckon 25% of people earning over £100,000 a year have no savings whatsoever. Because as you know, what actually happens is the more money you earn, guess what you do? The more money you spend. So strategically, that's a very business-like word, one of the key things to do is to say, right, if you can limit what you spend, but your income goes up, it's like the jaws, they're getting bigger. Therefore, you've got more income that you can put away for a rainy day, for tomorrow, for a holiday, for a cut, whatever. But you have to be realistic in today's world. Throughout the world, there's an awful lot of people that's paycheck to paycheck. We know that.
Is it bad? I mean, is it one of those things in life? Hopefully, that doesn't exist, last for the rest of your life, obviously. But I mean, is it bad? I mean, do you, when you're talking to clients, your clients, within that age group and within that sort of demographic structure, I mean, do you say to them, oh, wait a minute, you need to save? Do you do that? Or do you just sort of say, look, time will come, you'll be okay? How do you handle that?
I do exactly what you say. Be realistic. There's no point, Ian Price, the old 66-year-old from Swindon, telling me to do this, when in fact, we've got 25 quid left or whatever the figure is. All I try and say is at some point, hopefully, your income will be more than the expenditure. And every so often, I was very lucky. I work for organisations where some years I'd get a bonus. That was brilliant. But somebody gave me the best piece of advice ever was, don't spend a bonus. And by that, he means don't sort of say, oh, I'm getting a bonus of X, therefore I'll spend it. And when it comes in, pay it off. Having said that, I know that does happen. So, Bill, when I'm talking to those people, it's really about what is the here and now? What is your absolutely minimum amount of income you need each month to survive? Tick. And as I said, when we were younger, Bill, we didn't have things called mobile phones, Netflix, Amazon Prime, or whatever, which some youngsters think is priority. I'd have a debate about that, but that's a whole conversation over a glass of wine. But in their world, my daughters love watching Netflix because they don't go out so much. So actually, the cost compared to going out is worth it. So, a lot. I don't know if you saw in the UK yesterday, a bar chain called Revolution have just declared a massive or £22 million loss because guess what? People aren't going out on a Friday anymore. So youngsters now are making fundamental decisions about what they do and what they don't do. Great news. But what I don't want them to be, you've got to have some nice things to look forward to, Bill, no matter what age you are or where you are. So if you save up, it means once a month you can go out for a meal. Absolutely brilliant. Go out on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, because in the UK it's a darn sight cheaper because the restaurants do deals. So it's things like that.
Yeah, I think just to wrap up on that saving thing, one of the things that we do in our presentations, sort of seminar kind of thing, is we talk about the save and spend routine. So in other words, while people say I can't save, but we're trying to buy a new car or we're trying to buy a house or something like that. So they're saving for that. What they're really meaning is that they're not long-term saving for retirement or whatever it may be, but it's saving. And I think if you give them the license, shall we call it, to do that, to say, okay, fair enough, save as best as you can because a year from now, 2 years from whatever it is, you're planning to, buy a house or whatever sort of thing. So I think that save and spend, thing, is important. Ian, you and I could talk about, income and expenses in this age group for the next 2 or 3 hours, I guess, But so let's wrap this up. We've looked at those first 2 categories. Next time around, we'll move up the age scale. We'll get a wee bit closer to you and me, but maybe not quite there yet. But so listen, Ian, thanks very much, as usual, and to our viewers, thanks for joining us. This is our continuing series of Money Matters by Olderhood. You've been listening to Ian Price, financial consultant in the UK. I'm Bill Story signing off, and we'll see you next time. Take care, folks. Bye.
Thank you.